Hello, and welcome to Amputee for Life, created to focus on members of the limb loss community and those who support them. We will feature testimonials from amputees, family members, and professionals working within the limb loss community, and include strategies, ideas, and heartfelt stories in the hope of providing greater awareness around the lives of some of the most amazing and resilient people on earth. My name is Jared Taylor, and I will be your host. I've got a great guest with me today who I'm real happy to have on the show, Tom Jalinski. He is coming from the great state of Illinois, and Tom caught my eye last week when I read about him and his epic journey that he's about to embark on. He's going to be hiking a 1,200-mile length part of the Ice Age National Scenic Trail in Wisconsin. It sounds to me like he's a glutton for punishment, but he's got a great cause, and I am really excited to hear more about what his journey is going to be and what it's going to look like, and share it with the rest of our limb loss community and those that are interested. Because this sounds like a really great time. We had a nice conversation on the phone the other day, and first of all, I just wanted to express Tom is no stranger to the limb loss community. He's had multiple amputations since I think 2007, if I'm correct. And
Yeah.
he's really been through the ringer, and he is a warrior. There is no doubt about it. And he's extremely resilient. He's a great example of how to overcome hardship and disability. And with that, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show today, Tom.
And thank you so much for having me, Jared. I can't express my appreciation enough. Words don't really do it. Just like you, I'm trying to spread awareness and help people understand that you know we can, even against some of these incredible odds, because amputations don't cure anything. They might be what you need to stay alive, which they were in my case, but they're not cures.
You're
They
right.
leave us in pieces.
Yeah, you're right.
So.
Leave us in pieces, and they're not cures, and it creates greater challenges for those of us that actually have needed amputations. And you're no stranger to that. And if you don't mind, could you just give me a little bit of a rundown as to the beginning of your amputation process and what it led to all the way up to 2023?
Sure. So about 7 years before I had my first amputation, I started getting just random infections for no reason. There wasn't any sores. It wasn't the normal route that you'd see infections. Well, that turned into a chronic osteomyelitis, and they really couldn't figure out a reason for any of that. As we went along, the vascular disease started to show. I'm not sure which came first, but both the symptoms from the illnesses and the cures, whichever one came first, could have caused the other one. We fast forward ahead to my first amputation. They started with toes, and it took me in 2007, I lost my first toe. And by 2009, I'd set a goal to try to make it for more than 90 days without being an inpatient in the hospital. I was fighting for my life between the infections. By 2012, it was the infection and the antibiotics. And in the meantime, I'd had my first heart attack that I didn't have treated because it didn't hurt. I didn't know I had it. I didn't go in for that, and moved ahead till I was 49 years old, just shortly before I had my below the knee amputation. About a year and a half before that, I had my second heart attack. And they told me about my first heart attack after they did my heart cath and the stents and all of the consequent testing. And I'm going, oh, well, this is a bigger problem, than I'd imagined. I think the reason it was overlooked, or even after my heart attack, all of my vitals, when it came to stuff like that, everything, they were doing all them tests, circulation tests, everything was coming back normal. My blood pressure was normal. My blood pressure is still normal.
Really surprising then to get that information that you'd already had a heart attack.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And once I knew what it felt like and the symptoms that followed with the chronic tiredness, and I can go back and pinpoint the day I had it. I was guiding a rock climbing tour at Devil's Lake State Park in Wisconsin. So I'd be carrying gear. We'd pack, I don't know, when we were doing guiding, about 60 pounds of gear. And we'd go about a mile through this boulder field before we'd get to the cliff. And I had to stop and rest. I'm assuming this was the morning after the heart attack because the day before I felt fine. So I just kind of traced it back to that. And I figured it was the night before. Of course, the people that I was guiding didn't mind resting, but that just seems so weird to me. I mean, I was lightheaded and everything. And I was going, wow, there's something not right here, you know. And it took me years before I got back to feeling normal again, and then found out about the heart attack later. But the vascular issues, all of that, a year and a half or so after I had my second heart attack, the infection had gotten worse to the point where even if we could have saved my left foot, the antibiotics were taking such a toll on me. It just didn't make any sense. I needed to have an amputation right then. I was going into kidney failure and liver failure as soon as they would start them heavy antibiotics that were required. It just didn't make any sense to keep trying to win.
Mm.
So after we did that, I got better for a couple of years. When I went in for that amputation, I was slated to be a bilateral below the knee amputee. My right foot had osteomyelitis in it too. And they pretty much prepared me for, listen, it's not going to get better. Right now might be the time. After I healed up from that, we were addressing the circulation issues. That osteomyelitis in my foot went away. They couldn't find it anymore.
Hmm.
So I was able to keep my right foot. And I didn't have any trouble until about, so we're going to get to my left below the knee amputation, happened in 2017. My right transmetatarsal amputation happened in 2021. So I had some issues in between that in that period of time, but I wasn't constantly an inpatient in the hospital anymore after that. It was starting to get better. Things were starting to look better. And then I came down with the infection. The osteomyelitis either reappeared or redeveloped from more than likely the same vascular issues. And I ended up getting my right transmetatarsal amputation in 2021. Well, that one really knocked me down because I just couldn't get the balance back. It took me over a year to really recover and feel good about walking on uneven ground. Even the yard was rough enough to throw me off balance. That took me almost, I'm going to say, about 17 or 18 months before I was comfortable walking again.
Wow.
So that's the struggle in a nutshell. I've always been into fitness. I've always been into holistic practices. I tried to do everything I could to keep myself healthy. And thank goodness that on the medical side of it, them guys are so good at saving people's lives because they definitely saved my life several times. So during that period, I was on the edges. I was septic at times and I had sepsis many times and on the edge all the time. The infections would, when they would come, I'd see cellulitis. We could watch it spread in hours. A doctor would come and look and they go, in the emergency room, that don't look that bad. And 2 hours later, I'd have cellulitis up to my knee.
Oh my gosh.
So it was insane. And that was because of the poor health that the illness took, the toll the illness took. And then antibiotics are really rough on you too. And I needed them. I didn't, there was no way out when it came to that. But that's just the health side of that in a nutshell. Almost 30 years since this started.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
now,
that's crazy. It's a crazy
yeah,
long time to be dealing with so many health issues. And like I said on the phone with you the other day, I feel really honored to be able to be talking with you and having this conversation and to meet you because you have been so close and been on the edge so many times. And prior to all of these health issues that started 30 years ago, from what I understand, you were real avid rock climber, slackliner, mountaineer, guiding, and work construction. You've been a contractor for all these years. And so definitely
Mhm.
someone who depends on being on their feet all the time. So with that being
Yeah,
said, how have you been able to adapt mentally, Tom, to these physical changes to your body? And like you mentioned, the balance issues. I know that you said the other day that's still kind of a constant for you. You have to be real careful with your balance. And how do you work through that?
the mental parts of it are the hardest by far. When I After I got my break, when I had my, I'm going to call it my break, if anyone can imagine that. When I got my break after the below the knee amputation, I was expecting to feel better. Every other amputation I had made me feel better, but I slipped almost immediately into just a rage, anger to the point of rage, which traded itself off with really severe depression. And it just sort of created a chaos in my mind that I didn't know what to do with. The rage sure didn't seem like depression. And the depression, I thought, well, I should be depressed. You know, I just lost my foot. So that was a really, really hard time. And had it not been for my wife, after about 7 months or so, maybe, well, no, that's not even fair because it took me about 6 months to get my prosthetic. So, and about 3 or 4 months after that, she was like, "You have to do something, or you're going to be living here by yourself." You know, she had had enough,
Mhm.
and that really is the push that I needed to start getting help to pull myself out of it. I ended up going to the Amputee Coalition meeting that year. I ended up getting involved in a support group, and I even did some in-person counseling through the church that I was involved with. And it really, I needed every bit of the help I could get to get through that. Is Did that cure, or it just relieved? It gave me enough relief to be able to get past it and see some positive things. And then I had to build on the little bit of positive because still, even after all of that effort, more days were dark than were positive. And then in 2020, about the time I was getting pretty good, I lost my son to the vascular issues. He was only 36. I wasn't angry about that, but that just led you, that mourning process led me back into that cycle of depression again. Getting over things, that mind component is still an incredible challenge. Now, when I get tired, it's really hard for me sometimes not to slip back into that. Sometimes it's what I need to focus on is this being positive in them moments. And I'm talking when I say tired, physically tired, or some days that doesn't take much because some days there's a lot of pain. There's still the physical component. And then it kind of gets back to the activity level. When I first started with the infections in my feet, I was always getting, every doctor told me I had to get off my feet. Well, I don't know how long people can sit, but I wasn't very good at sitting. After a couple hours, that I had to get up and move. I mean, I was used to being active. I I didn't have a designated spot on the couch or a couch even to speak of at that time. That's how little time I spent not doing other things.
Wow.
Um, yeah, yeah. So when the doctors would look at me and say, "What about when you sit down and put your feet up?" And I go, I usually lay down because I'm going to bed. you know, I
Ama
and that was a really hard adjustment. And I never really made that adjustment until I had to after they amputated my leg below the knee, my foot below the knee. Now, and I mean, one of my mottos, and I look back at it now and I'm not that proud of it, is anything worth doing is best overdone. So, in order to help people understand how insane I was about being active. When I can't remember what numbers surgery it was, but I had the third toe amputated on my left foot. So it was early on in this round of amputations. I changed the dressing in the parking lot of the hospital so I could get it in my shoe.
Oh,
So, so I could keep going and carry on with my day. So activity and, overdone, that's just a point of reference. So it was very hard for me to make that adjustment. It still is. And it brings me to what I want to do with hiking the Ice Age Trail. And that I
before
started that.
before we get into that real quickly, let me interrupt you. First off, I want to, give you my condolences to the loss of your son in 2020. As a father, I never want to experience that. I've seen my parents lose two children and know how crushing that is and how permanent. And so kudos to you for getting back up and moving forward. I know you have a wife and you have other children and you have grandchildren. They all depend on you and that you love. And I think that's awesome. And I want to make sure that our audience understands what you have going on. So you're a below knee amputee on the right leg and an above knee amputee on the left leg, correct? Or are you below knee
No,
both legs?
low knee on the left leg
Okay.
and right transmetatarsal. So I'm missing all of my toes, and the two outside bones on my feet were affected by osteomyelitis. They're pretty much gone too.
Oh man.
So the part I've got like half of a foot, and that, so the question when you go to the doctor is, have you fallen down in the last? I can't even. I don't let them get any further. I just go. Of course I have. You know, I don't make it a few weeks without falling down. So yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I can't imagine. I and I don't know if you know this because I didn't talk about this with you before, and I've mentioned it to other amputees, and they didn't seem to know this, but there is a study that has shown that below knee amputees exert 30% more energy with each and every step that we take, and an above knee amputee exerts 75% more energy with every single step that needs to happen to get them moving. And with that being said, you've got so much energy that is expected of you with every single step that you take, whether with your right foot or your left foot. And now let's talk about this 1,200-mile walk you're about to embark on next month.
Okay. Um, when I decided to do this, or as I decided to do this, it took me. I started considering this probably back in November, maybe a little sooner. I really need something to help create an identity around, to get back into, and to have something I can enjoy and really tackle, try to put down as an accomplishment. Now, if I fail, this is still going to be an accomplishment, because if I fail to complete the whole trail, incidentally, I'm starting on the 4th. I'm going up for my first round. I have it scheduled with the sector management, and I'm going to meet them up there, and we're going to get started on the first segment of the trail.
That's a week from
So,
today, right?
yes,
Yeah.
and I'm not making any predictions about distance or anything. This
Okay.
is training. It's not going to be, I'm not going out there completely green, but we'll see. And one of the starting points is going to be really challenging. It's a bluff going up. There's some elevation gain and drop there. So I'm looking forward to that. But the reason that I started to get to the point of, the whole idea of healthcare and getting better and healing is to somewhere in this situation is to find some self identity and some dignity in the situation we're in. And I'm to the point right now where I really need to work on that myself. And I really feel like, based on my experience with the other support groups and other amputees, that sharing that and talking about that is going to help a lot of people understand that you know, that we all struggle with this. We all, at some point, we have, or in my case, I still do struggle with it. I don't get depressed and for weeks on end, but I still have to fight it off. I still have to, at times, so we all have our down days, and we can all move forward and try to get to a better place in our heads and make the most out of the things we're doing. So I'm hoping that by sharing this journey, and hopefully I'll complete it. My goal is to complete it. Even bigger, a bigger part of my goal. As a matter of fact, I have no doubt I can complete it. But the bigger part of it is this year. So in the next 6 months, I'd like to complete it. So that's the bigger part of it. If I have to, when I say I'm going to complete it, if I have to, it'll go beyond that 6 months. But I've already decided I'm going to try to be determined enough, short of anything crazy happening with my health, that I'll be able to get through that. And then I've already been out training, and that I can already feel the confidence coming back. I can actually feel my balance getting better because I'm out on the trails. So I'm challenging it. Until that point, I was trying to stay on flat ground, trying to do safe things, trying to make sure. Now I just take a walking stick, or sometimes even forearm crutches, to help me with my balance out on the trail. If it's rough, I need some help with my balance, and to ensure that I'm not doing anything foolish and getting to the point where it's dangerous and falling. And I'm working out ways in my training. It's not just getting in shape. I'm in fairly good shape. It's techniques, strategies to get me through this goal that I've set for myself. And goal setting wasn't in my life a very important thing until I started with this illness, and I had to set goals to get better and get better. Before that, I had a successful life, but I was the definition of a free spirit. If it sounded good, if if I was outside of work and somebody called me half the country away, I'd jump in the car and meet them there. It was just for an adventure. It didn't, a drop of the hat kind of thing. And I'd push off other things to be like that. Now I'm a lot more focused and determined, and really interested in chasing my dreams, and doing that by setting goals and pushing to stay after them. So
Yeah, this
that's
is
what I'm hoping to accomplish.
really inspirational. And you're obviously very young at heart still, and to be able to just come up with this idea, I feel like just laying down thinking about it. I'm like, I don't think I could do that. And I like to go out for a hike. I take my dogs up to the local duck pond, which is only about 5 minutes away, and I'm tired, and that's just missing one half of my leg. And so I really admire what you're doing here. And I know what you mean about goal setting. And it just, training and endurance, we can build endurance, we can build stamina. It's that's easier to do. It's harder to do in our heads when we think about doing it, but when we just get out and do it and start getting into that routine, that's the idea. And I think that's where a lot of amputees, myself included, get stuck and trying new things. And I've been doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu lately, which I took up because my youngest son is taking martial arts. And I've just really loved watching him. And I learned that I could do this too. But it's a different kind of exhausting than I've ever experienced. And sometimes it's really challenging, just the thought of going to class. But I appreciate the challenge. And once I get in there, things start, pieces start coming together. It's kind of like when you are a new amputee and you have no idea what to expect of yourself when you haven't even gotten a prosthesis yet and you're still hobbling around on crutches and going to physical therapy. You have no idea what it's going to be like. You can't picture yourself even being able to do it really. And so it's just these mental blocks. And that's the kind of hope that I hope that we can give to some of our listeners that are at that point or actually getting ready to have an amputation, which is very scary and it is very difficult to process. But there is another side, there is another end to it. And not that life gets completely better. We still have all our regular normal challenges as well. And will continue to. Amputation isn't always the worst thing that's going to happen to us. And I think that you're a great example of that because of all that you've experienced and the challenges you've been through, and you're forging ahead. Your chin is up, and you're ready to go. And I really appreciate you. And I wanted to find out if you've walked any of this trail before, because I know you're a native of Wisconsin, and this trail apparently spans. Well, you're going to be going through maybe your portion is, I think, covering about 30 or so different counties in Wisconsin. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. So I have 30 years ago when I lived in Wisconsin, and I was sick for a long time while I was living there. So just as I was getting sick, and even a little before that, the mountain climbing and the adventures and all that that had to go. I just couldn't keep that up. But my escape and my the place that I considered my safe place, and I could share with my kids who were still in high school yet, were the trails in Wisconsin. And I fell in love with the Ice Age Trail. I even went to some meeting or early organization meetings as an audience member. And I was excited about that. And I got started on that trail. And back then, my goal was to finish it in segments, just like I'm gonna do now. But I got too sick. I just couldn't maintain that. And it really wasn't as developed. You know, 30 years ago, it was probably 300 miles of wilderness trail, and the rest was road connectors. They hadn't acquired the land, they hadn't connected all the parks and all of the segments. They didn't have all the permissions and all the right of ways in.
Did it still
So,
have ice on it at that time?
yeah, I'm not going when there's ice on it. My days of wearing mountaineering boots or hiking boots with crampons are over. My balance. I'm not going to do that again. But what I really appreciate what you were talking about with the taking up the jiu Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I know I say it wrong. I'm sorry.
I do half the time
But
too.
yeah, but the idea that it's just very hard to get in the mindset. And we have this, I think we just need to keep talking about this because the one thing that seemed to be missing at the Amputee Coalition, which that was a great event. That was a great event, but it was about everyone's success, which is great. We need to talk about that too. But sometimes it gets forgot. The struggles that we go through get forgotten amongst our community, and we need to just encourage each other. And your story was extremely encouraging to me. So I kind of got off on a tangent there, but I
Well,
wanted to
that's
say
okay. I
that.
don't mind the praise. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm glad that we understand each other when it comes to that. And I think obviously I'm not the first person to talk about this. You've been at this longer than I have, and I've met other people that talk about this. But we need to talk about it. It's not all. Even when I go to my support meetings, we try to put our best foot forward for the most part. And is it really honest? I think we all understand that we all have these struggles, but talking about it helps. So
Yeah, it is difficult for us. We always want to put our I don't know why I do this, but we always want to put our best foot forward. And
yeah,
no pun intended, but that's just how it comes out. Yet that's not always best for us or for the others that we're talking with and working with. We need to show the humanity in our situation. And I mean, quite frankly, to be an amputee just really totally sucks. But on the other hand, I've found ways to tap into myself and grow where I would have never been able to before. And I feel like it's made me in some ways definitely a better person. I always like to think of myself as someone who's compassionate and empathetic to others. But honestly, I don't know how deep that went until I became an amputee and really kind of needed that myself. But it's hard to find. It's hard to find that support. So, like with you and you're challenging to go on the trail and hike. That's why I do the jujitsu. I'm not trying to impress anybody. It's not for anybody other than myself, to see what I'm capable of doing. And I think that's how we grow. And if we could always stay stagnant, but I don't like that feeling. And it just feels like I'm going downhill as opposed to uphill. And I'd much rather be going uphill because eventually there's going to be a summit and we can get that awesome view and hit that plateau until we have to, start climbing again.
Right, right. And I feel the same way about that. Uh, and I want this to be encouragement. I don't want anybody to forget, though, the part of it that I'm doing it for my own growth too. It's not just complete selflessness, it's something that I need to do. It's something that I feel that I need to do for myself to get that confidence back that I used to have. I doubt that I'm ever going to have that 30-year-old confidence with the physical limitations, but I might get there, and I'm reaching for it.
That's half the
And
battle
I'm
right
learning.
there.
Yeah, and I'm learning so much. There's a lot of things besides the trail that I need to learn how to do, a lot of skills about sharing and reaching out to people and talking to them about, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. And people like yourself step up and help. And that's just an awesome situation to be in. But these are the sorts of things that I didn't have to do before in my life. And when we talk about empathy and we talk about, I feel the same way about it you did. It was never foreign to me. I always felt like I was, but I didn't really understand it until I was in this situation too. Or not, I didn't understand it like I do now.
Mhm.
It's just incredible the change in perspective and how perspective changes when we're sharing and talking and trying to encourage each other.
Well,
So,
there's no doubt. I mean, there is a spotlight on us, and we put a spotlight on ourselves mostly, but it's in our gait. It's and when we wear shorts, it's whatever the case may be. If we're using canes or crutches or in our wheelchair, there is just a more brighter light on us. But it doesn't have to be a negative light, which a lot of times we can interpret that ourselves. We put that on ourselves. I don't think there's very many people out there that I interact with on a daily basis that are just like, man, that guy's an amputee. What a loser. Nothing like that. But those are thoughts I've had that I've had to overcome at times. I don't often feel that way, but there's been times, usually due to pain and like excruciating pain and the inability to don my prosthesis for a few days or something really irritates me because there's only so much that you can do from your crutches, which I try to do everything from my crutches, and I've gotten pretty good at a lot of things, but it's where I really take a hit, with my ego. And I think it's just also just we're on a journey here, and it can be whatever we make it. And yeah, reaching out to each other, and that's why I'm so thankful that you immediately responded to me when I said, "Hey, man, I love your story. Please be a guest on my show because there are others that need to hear you and your story and your goals." And so it's going to spark a light bulb in somebody's head, and hopefully more than one person, when they hear us talking and hear your experience that, hey, I've really been wanting to do this or that. I really think that I can. And whether I can or not, I'm going to give it my best. And that's really, I guess, the challenge that we're faced with. And it's easier for some than it is for others, but it's difficult for all of us. And so,
right, right. Absolutely. At our last amputee support meeting, I there were two gentlemen there that have been amputees for over 40 years. So going through the struggles of working and all of that stuff. I mean, my whole career wasn't like that. My whole life wasn't like that. And one of them is a bilateral below the knee and lower arm amputee.
mm,
He's had some incredible struggles. It's just so interesting for me to listen to their stories and the challenges and all the other stuff. Um, but on the other thing you brought up, I'm going to be hanging around in Wisconsin. So any amputees that would just like to get together and have a cup of coffee if they're within shot. And I'm driving there from central Illinois. I'm going to be doing that quite often in the next 6 to 8 months. I would love to hook up with anybody that would just like to talk for a little bit and I'd love to have anybody join me even for a short segment, a hike, if that's something they're interested in or anything like that would be just incredible.
Oh, I think that's great too. I would love to hear of somebody coming out and supporting you that way and just getting to know you. You're a great guy to chat with, and I'm sure it'd be a lot of fun to walk a little bit with you, or even just have a cup of coffee. So please, listeners, take Tom up on his offer. Now, how would are you going to be documenting this in some way that's kind of live or real time? Would be the best way for people to try to get a hold of you? Maybe through your Facebook page.
It's gonna the best is gonna be through my Facebook page. So real time, it's gonna be social media updates. I'll do some live reels on for Facebook and Instagram. I haven't done much with TikTok or Snapchat, but I'm gonna do some of that with the live reels. I'm gonna figure out how to do it. I'm almost 60. Some of this stuff is really new to me.
Or
and I
every day too.
Yeah, yeah. And I just started posting some videos on YouTube. And of course, I'm going to try to keep you in the loop and stuff, and everybody else that's helped me in the loop, so that if there's anything you guys want to share or just make comments about, that's greatly appreciated. But yeah, there's going to be, I post, even now with the training, I post about this project every single day on my Facebook page. And there's three of them. I have just Tom Jalinski. That's the best way to find me on Facebook. But then I have a Springfield Amputee support page. And then I have a Springfield Amputee support group. And the group is private. You'd have to request, but the page isn't. Pretty much everything that goes on the page that's tied to my personal page too
Oh, great.
is interchangeable. Yeah, yeah. And then, like I said, I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. Not as much stuff gets on LinkedIn. They want that to be a little more professional or whatever. But I post on LinkedIn almost every day. So
Okay, okay, I'm gonna hook up with you on LinkedIn as well, and
okay,
then I can go
that
ahead and post some things, that you're posting on my, LinkedIn page as well. And so, I imagine in my head, but I know it's not accurate, you're out there, you're on this Ice Age trail, you're wearing animal skins, and, you've got a big club, and you've got a tent that you're gonna be pitching every time you stop overnight, but that's probably not really how you're gonna be doing this. So, tell me a little bit about your support team that's gonna be traveling with you and what that looks like.
all right. So the beautiful part about the Ice Age Trail is part of the service that the volunteers that manage each segment provide are trail angels. So I can just kind of give them ideas of where I'm going to be or where I expect to be, and I can get rides back to my car. So I intend to camp overnight as often as I can. Really, in the condition I'm in, it's going to be overnight hikes. I'm going to hike 2 days in a row. And there's no way I'm going to be, if I shouldn't say there's no way, but it would be in my best interest to not hike 3 days in a row. I need to rest for a period. Usually I have appointments that are standard that I have to make for doctor's appointments. So I'll be traveling back and forth as I'm doing these segments. So I love to camp. I'm going to be carrying my camping gear with me in a backpack. I'll have rain gear. I'll have my food that I'm going to be eating on the trail. I'll even have a camp stove and everything to camp. I'm going to just carry my water. I'm not planning on filtering it. It's not going to be a survival trip by any means. And I'm always going to have the trail angels where I can. Now, when I'm going on the 4th, they already know of my limitations that I might need to call them and say, hey, is there something so they're going to be flexible with me. And if I have to sit down, I'm just going to sit down and wait for them. I'm going to carry a chair with me, a camp chair, but something that I can sit down and make adjustments because I make them in real time to my prosthetic and that. And just to rest. So the best thing for me as I've been doing my training is I'm going through this hike, and what I'm envisioning is I can make it about 2.5 miles with just minor adjustments to my prosthetic. And then I need to sit down and rest for a half an hour to 45 minutes and let my leg rest and let the circulation get back in there. I still have the vascular issues, even though I have blood flow. 2 years ago, there were occlusions that I just wasn't getting enough blood to my legs. Now we've got that straightened out, but it still causes some pain. It's not like it should. So I need to rest there. And then I make it about a mile, and then I'll need to rest again. So every half an hour, I'm going to need to rest a half an hour. And I'm hoping to get in real time walking about 7 to 9 miles a day. There are some parts of the trail, and I walked on them before, that would be really have been really challenging even in my 30s with the elevation changes and all of the and how varied the terrain is. So I'm not going to be able to do that on every segment. But then there's some segments that are old railroad trails that are shared that are flat and easy, pretty easy walking. So it should even out to about 7 to 8 miles a day. And that's really my goal and what I'm expecting this first time out. I know that it's going to get better. I love the warmer weather. I love the sun shining. Just them things as we get into spring. It's going to be like going back a couple months from here to there because it's 20 degrees colder in Janesville today than it is here. And if I was going up further, I'd be looking at snow. So it's a substantial weather change. But yeah, but it's going to get better for me as the season goes on.
I'm absolutely so excited. This is so cool and it's very inspiring, Tom. I just think that you're going to do great no matter how long it takes. Yeah, just doing it, one step at a time and baby steps, right? And this is very inspiring to me too. And I hope to be able to link up with you when you're all through with your adventure and come out on the other side and talk about it. Some of these exciting stories that you had and these peaceful moments that you have communing with nature and the challenges that you'll face too. And so with that, I thank you again, Tom Jalinski, everybody. He is a wounded warrior who's come out the other side and he is a limb loss um, spiritual giant, and in my eyes anyway, and I think that whoever follows along with him would be better off for doing so. And if you get the chance to meet up with him, please do offer your support, or at least give him a like on his Facebook page or Instagram reels, and let's just keep him going. Let's walk along with him as much as we can. And so with that, Tom, again, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure to meet you, and I really appreciate you being a guest on the Amputee for Life show.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. If I can just share some of my experience through the illness, something for everyone to remember, especially new amputees. The small steps are the ones that count. They're the ones that get you there. So celebrate them.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Well, absolutely amazing. So Godspeed, Tom, and best of luck to you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today on Amputee for Life. Please stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, stay well, be safe, and please remember to enjoy the little things.